The second way that we stop walking on eggshells and we move into calm, honest conversation is to name the dynamic, not the defect. So when people tend to shut down, the temptation is to diagnose or to criticize. So you might find yourself saying something like, you never talk, or you always avoid. Those statements, they may be true or they might feel true for you, but they land to the person that you're talking to as an attack. And when we feel attacked, the natural thing that we tend to do is to go into a protective mode or a defense mode. Welcome to Life and Love by Design. I'm life and relationship coach Odette Coronel. This podcast is for individuals and couples who are done living on autopilot, who are ready to understand the patterns shaping their relationships, their choices, and their sense of self, and redesign them with purpose and intention. Here, we don't just talk about what's hard. We name what's actually happening beneath it and what to do about it. And if you start recognizing yourself or your relationship in these conversations, know that this is the exact work that I do with my private coaching clients, individuals and couples who are ready for real change. Because a meaningful life and connected relationships don't happen by default. They're designed. So let's begin. Welcome back to Life and Love by Design, the podcast where we talk about how to live and love with intention and purpose and not by default. I'm Odette, and today we're talking about something that I hear all the time from my coaching clients. They tell me all the time, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. Maybe that's you. I know I've said that before. And it could be with your partner. And that's what we're going to be kind of focusing on today. But maybe you are walking on eggshells when you're interacting with your boss, or maybe your parent, or a neighbor, or some kind of loved one. So take what we're talking about today and apply it in a way that makes sense for you. But if you're choosing your words carefully and you're kind of managing your tone, your timing, your facial expressions, you find yourself rehearsing your conversations in your head before you even open your mouth. And then still, things tend to either shut down or blow up, or maybe they go silent and the person just shuts down and stops talking to you. If you've ever felt like one wrong word could end the conversation or even the relationship, then this episode is for you. And we're going to be talking about why shutdowns happen. And I'm going to share with you 3 easy, practical ways to stop walking on eggshells so that you can start having calm, honest conversations without the conversation escalating and without really trying to fix everything. And most importantly, without losing yourself. And again, this applies to you whether you're dating, you're married, you're co-parenting, or even just navigating family or work relationships. So let's start talking about what's really going on, what walking on eggshells really means. When someone says they're walking on eggshells, they're usually describing something that's not just fear of conflict. It's actually fear of emotional consequences. So what that means is it's fear that the other person's going to shut down, or it's fear that the person that they're talking to is going to get defensive or angry. You're just afraid of their reaction. Or maybe you're afraid that they're going to withdraw affection, or fear that the relationship is going to feel unsafe. So when that happens, you tend to shrink, you soften, you edit yourself, or you just avoid the person or a conversation altogether. And over time, something really important starts to happen. And that is that you start losing access to your own truth because you're constantly just editing yourself. It's not really because of what you're saying and the words that you're using. They're caused by how safe or unsafe the nervous system feels in the conversation. So when someone shuts down, whether it's yourself or the other person, their nervous system is just in protection mode. So they'll either freeze, withdraw, go quiet, or maybe just change the subject. And it's not because they're immature, it's just physiology. It's just what happens to their body, it happens to their nervous system. So if we want calmer, more honest conversations, we don't just start with better words, we start with safety. And that brings us to the first shift. So the first way that we are able to shift from walking on eggshells to having a clear honest conversation is to move from content to capacity. Most people try to fix conversations by changing what they say. But the real question is, does the other person have the capacity for this conversation right now? And capacity means, are they capable to really hear what I'm saying and have a conversation? Are they regulated? Are they already super stressed and overwhelmed? Is their nervous system open or closed? You can be 100% right and still be talking to someone who literally cannot receive what you're saying to them. So, what this looks like in real life is, instead of launching into the issue or the discussion, you pause and you check for capacity. So, for example, you might ask, is now a good time to talk about something important? Or should I come back to you later? Or you might say, I want to share something really important to you. Are you in a place to hear me right now? Another thing you might say is, this isn't urgent, but it really matters to me. Can we find a time to talk later? These are all possible things that you can say to kind of check and make sure that the person is ready to hear what you have to say. And what this does is two things. Number one, it reduces defensiveness. And number two, it restores choice and agency. And if the answer is no, believe it. So if they tell you, what, now's not a good time, it's not a rejection, it's information. So you want to listen and respect that. So here's the reframe. Waiting for capacity is not walking on eggshells. It's actually leading with emotional intelligence. If you're doing all the right things, you're showing up, you're holding it together, you're being capable and responsible, and yet something in your life and relationships or your marriage still feels off, then give me a few seconds of your time, because this message is for you. Relationships don't usually fall apart because of one big event. More often, it's the small everyday moments when we stop being intentional, or we stop really listening, or we stop choosing connection. Those are the things that create distance over time. I work with thoughtful, high functioning individuals and couples who aren't broken, but they're feeling disconnected or misaligned or just wondering how they got here. In my coaching, we slow things down. We try to understand what's happening beneath the surface. We identify the patterns that are shaping your relationships and your choices, and then we intentionally design what comes next. So if you're listening and you're thinking, this feels like me, that's not an accident. I offer a complimentary relationship and life alignment audit. It's a focused 45-minute conversation where I'm going to help you gain clarity and identify what comes next. You can book your session by visiting odettecoronel.com. I would love to connect with you. The second way that we stop walking on eggshells and we move into calm, honest conversation is to name the dynamic, not the defect. So when people tend to shut down, the temptation is to diagnose or to criticize. So you might find yourself saying something like, you never talk, or you always avoid, or you're so emotionally unavailable. Those statements, they may be true or they might feel true for you, but they land to the person that you're talking to as an attack. And when we feel attacked, the natural thing that we tend to do is to go into a protective mode or a defense mode. So instead, what we want to do is name the pattern, not the person. So we want to separate the pattern from the person. We want to separate the behavior from the identity of the person. So here's the difference. So defect language would be saying, you shut down every time I bring this up. That kind of feels like an attack. But dynamic language would be, I notice that when this topic comes up, we both seem to get tense and the conversation stops. So this feels a little bit less threatening. One invites collaboration and the other one triggers protection. So try this structure next time. I'm noticing a pattern where X happens and I feel Y. What I want is Z. So that's a dynamic structure that you can use when you want to have a conversation with someone that you feel like you might be walking on eggshells. So for example, I'm noticing that when I share my concerns with you, the conversation gets really quiet. I end up feeling alone. And what I want to feel is that we can stay connected even when things are hard. So again, if you hear that statement, it's not about blaming and it's just about bringing the relationship onto the same side of the table. The third way that we learn to stop walking on eggshells and to start having calm, honest conversations is to regulate yourself first and then relate. So this is probably the most important one. If your body is activated, that means that your chest is tight, you're breathing in a way that's shallow, maybe your thoughts are racing. If you're in that state, if you're kind of agitated, then you're not ready for an honest conversation. So you want to check in with yourself first. And if you're feeling that way, you're not regulated, and chances are they aren't either. So connection doesn't come from just pushing through activation. It actually comes from slowing down enough so that your nervous system relaxes and settles down. So before you even initiate conversation, ask yourself, can I breathe slowly right now? Am I trying to win, or am I trying to fix something, or am I trying to just be understood at all costs? Or can I stay connected, even if this is uncomfortable? So some simple regulation tools that you can use are just, take a couple of slow exhales. You breathe in and then you breathe out a little longer, for a few seconds longer. Maybe put your hand on your heart or your chest or even your belly. Drop your shoulders, lower your voice. Maybe go for a walk, run your hands under the cold water, just something so that you can just relax and regulate yourself before you start the conversation. And then and only then will you speak, because calm honesty sounds very different from activated honesty. And most people don't realize that your regulation gives the other person permission to stay present. So if you've been walking on eggshells, I want you to hear this. You're not too sensitive and you're not asking for too much. And you're also not failing at communication. You've just been trying to stay connected in a system that just didn't feel safe. But when you focus on capacity, when you name the dynamics instead of the defects, and when you're able to regulate yourself before you relate, then the conversations don't just change, but your relationships change. And if this episode resonated with you, I want you to reflect on one question this week. Where am I silencing myself in order to keep the peace? And what would safety look like instead? And if you're navigating this in a relationship and you want support, I work with individuals and couples who are ready to stop surviving conversations and start creating real connection by design. You can find ways to work with me by visiting odettecoronel.com. And if this episode helped you or resonated with you, please subscribe to the podcast, like the episode, and share it with someone that you think might benefit from it. And until next time, remember that your life and your love are yours to design. If today's episode described you or your relationship, then this is your moment. You don't need more information. You need a new way of living, choosing, and relating. And that's the work I do with individuals and couples. If you're ready to stop repeating the same patterns and start designing your life and relationships intentionally, visit the link in the show notes and book a complimentary relationship and life audit. Remember, your life and your love are yours to design.